In 2023, it's really not an overstatement to say that the most powerful camera most people own is the one that they carry in their pocket daily, and that's because it's the one attached to their smartphone. Because of this, it really makes sense that companies are now starting to make underwater housings for smartphones. We are going to be taking a look today at the SeaTouch 4 Max by Divevolk. This is an underwater housing that's designed to hold both Android and iOS devices, and apparently it's waterproof to 200 feet or 60 meters. Today we're going to be taking a closer look at it. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of underwater smartphone photography, and we're going to give this guy a final review. So let's dive right into it. So we're going to start this video off by first taking a closer look at the housing itself. Right away, if you were to pick it up, you're going to notice that it does have some decent weight to it. It feels really solid in the hands. Build quality wise, it does actually have metal and plastic. So there is a large metal frame at the front. There is a large metal frame at the back around which seems like a glass lens port. The back of the housing is made of rigid plastic. This spot here does look like rubber, but it is just textured plastic. This housing has a special feature which apparently it gives you full touchscreen functionality underwater. The way that it achieves this is by having this membrane at the front of the housing that allows you to interact with your phone. I believe it's actually gel filled because I do see a bit of liquid that kind of moves around as I press it. It's quite thick. It's hard to describe without you actually feeling it, but apparently this is what gives you that full touchscreen functionality when you're underwater. The housing on the outside as well has two screws at the top here. This is how you open it up to then slide your phone in and out, which we're going to talk about a little bit more here in a moment. On the outside of the housing, you do also have a connection port with an included lanyard and emergency rope style wrist guard. However, the housing itself doesn't have any mounting hardware, which is kind of disappointing. There's no way to attach it to a tripod screw or a GoPro mount or anything along those lines. So if you're trying to use this with any sort of photography tray, unfortunately you're going to be out of luck. All right, so let's talk about how you set this up with your phone. So the way that your phone fits into this housing is the housing itself comes with two trays. Both of these trays are geared towards iPhone, so this one will fit anything from an iPhone 6 all the way up to an iPhone 14 Pro Max, and then this one specifically is for another couple iPhone models between the 12 and 14 that this housing doesn't necessarily fit. So I am diving with a standard iPhone 14, so we are going to slip this guy into the housing, and you can see that it is pretty secure. There's no real movement in here. It does actually come with some rubber filler that you can attach to the bottom, like little stick-on rubbers that you can attach to give yourself a more secure connection. And I've also been told that if you reach out to the manufacturer and you have a 3D printer, they can give you the file for the 3D printed rack that will fit whatever type of phone you have, whether that be iPhone or Android. So that's really cool. The way that this works, now that we've got this top open, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to slip screen side in to the housing, just like this, so it should slide in with very little effort. Then what you're going to do is you're going to make sure your gasket is nice and clean. You want to make sure there's no hair or anything along the outside of that. You're going to press down on the top of the housing, and you're going to then screw this down. So this is a metal screw screwing into metal thread, so hopefully it should last you a long time. And the gasket itself does seem to be pretty durable. They don't give you an extra gasket in the box, so if you do damage that, I'm not totally sure if you can get a replacement or not. But once you've got that installed, you can see your phone is now securely watertight. Now this housing claims that it is waterproof down to 60 meters or 197 feet, which is really cool. I will admit I have not had the opportunity to take it down to that depth, but I did have a coworker take this phone with them on a trip to Puerto Rico in December, and she did do dives down to 100 feet with this housing, and she reported no leaks. So now that the phone is in the housing, you can see that it will give us full touchscreen functionality. So I can swipe to unlock, I can type in my passcode to get into the phone, and I have full access to my phone. Now this screen is very thick, and I'm not sure if the camera is going to show this very well, but when I actually touch the screen, you'll see that the image gets a little warped, and that's why I think that this is actually full of gel, because it is really thick, and there is definitely some refraction going on when you interact with it, but if that's what gives you the touchscreen functionality underwater, that's what it needs to be. My coworker who used this down south really enjoyed it. I'm going to throw some example photos up here in a moment. She is using an older iPhone, but she was still able to capture some really cool photos. This was in warm water without gloves. Now, I did get a chance to try this housing here in Southern Ontario. However, right now it is the middle of February, meaning that the water is very cold and I need to be wearing gloves, and I'm actually specifically wearing dry gloves. I am sad to report that this housing does not work with gloves. I was unable to get it to work with both neoprene gloves or dry gloves. Not totally unexpected because, again, it is a touchscreen style interaction, but it is a downside. Some of the higher end smartphone housings are going to have dedicated apps and buttons, but those housings are going to cost a lot more money. So depending what you're doing, it could be a total killer that it doesn't really work in cold water. But if you're mostly just doing warm water stuff, this housing does seem to be very easy to use. The housing's been on quite a few dives already, and it's holding up quite well. There's only a couple scratches and dents on it, but overall it seems to have its full stability still there. The screen doesn't really show any sort of scratches or wear and tear, so that's also good to see. But overall, it's a pretty cool housing. So before I give the SeaTouch 4 Max its final review, I just want to talk a little bit about my opinion of smartphone photography underwater. As mentioned, I think it's really cool. I do think that the technology that goes into our smartphone cameras is really revolutionary, and it's just going to make it easier for divers to get their photos. But it is important to consider that there is a little bit more risk if your device was to get ruined during the dive, right? Accidents do happen, whether you accidentally bang your housing against something underwater and crack the lens port, or you accidentally damage the touchscreen front of this housing, or even if you had a bigger camera and you had a large glass dome port, you accidentally bang it against something, you can accidentally flood your housing. You also have the user error element, so when you are putting together a smartphone housing, I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure that you are double checking that O-ring gasket is not dirty, because if you start to get water leaking into your housing, depending on how waterproof your phone is, there's a good chance that you could possibly fry your phone. And it's not just a camera, it's all of your personal contacts, your memories, different things like that. So it's really important for most people to preserve their phone. That being said, there are definitely some higher end smartphone housings, which I hope to be able to review later on this year, that do have certain functionality that will help warn a user if there is a leak detected within the housing, but this housing doesn't have it. Again, at the price point, I think it's a really good housing because it is going to allow the average person to take really good, high quality underwater photos and videos. Whether you're a swimmer, a diver, a snorkeler, you can use this housing to capture a lot of really cool things. And therefore, I do give this product a thumbs up. Again, if you are looking at getting into really the professional end of underwater photography, then you might want to look at those other higher end housings, because those are going to allow you to attach them to a photography tray so you can set up lights and have a truly proper underwater setup. But if you're just trying to get some quick photos for a trip, then I highly recommend checking with your local dive shop if you're able to get the SeaTouch 4 Max by Divevolk. If you guys enjoyed this video, thank you very much. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.